fans and owners who go through the week-to-week frustrations. For some, you're a Matt Rule. For some, you're a Bill Belichick. But no matter who you are, you have disappointing weeks. This is definitely a safe space and a place to vent. Fortunately, I don't feel like there are too many great teams in fantasy this year. I'm noticing a lot of like 4-2 teams, 3-3 teams, 2-4 teams. It feels like a wide open fantasy year. Dennis, are you having the same experience?
Oh, absolutely. Up and down. I'm in three leagues for fantasy. So over the weekend, I went 0-3, and then they all came down to just one decision in all three. In one, I started Garrett Wilson over Alec Pierce. Bad choice. I would have won had I switched them. Tyler Lockett over Michael Pittman. Another one where they were, forecasted to be within point one of each other, but Pittman went off. And then I had Jared Goff on a bye, so I thought Geno Smith would have the hot hand, but we saw how that panned out. But you know what? I don't care. I'll trade all of those losses in for another win by the Jets. I am just on cloud nine when it comes to what's going on with them right now. I'm enjoying it while it lasts.
It's amazing to watch New York football have such a turnaround. We were talking about New York football, and I know, forgive me, I should say New Jersey football, but I'll stick with the true team names for now. It's amazing to watch the Jets and Giants perform the way they have, and it really speaks to. I like the Maras as an ownership group. I'm not crazy about Woody Johnson, but that said, I think so highly of Robert Saleh and Brian Dayball. I think you see great head coaches bring the best out in their players, and you're seeing it with the Jets and the Giants. Finally, two fan bases have something to be excited about, but it's because it's not bad play calling. They're getting good development out of some of their players, and in clutch moments, they're getting leadership, and that's something that's been lacking in New York football. We're going to talk about the Jets. We're going to talk about the Giants throughout the show. I do want to start, though, with Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. Hopefully a game that sees a bit more offense than what we've seen in the past 2 weeks combined. The New Orleans Saints, 2-4, going to Arizona to play the 2-4 Cardinals. I'm seeing this game at 1.5. 45 points is the over-under. And just a few gambling trends before we talk about this game. The Saints are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games following a straight-up loss. The Cardinals are 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 home games. The home team is 7-1 against the spread in the last 8 meetings, and the over is 6-2 in the last 10 meetings. DeAndre Hopkins comes back. That's going to be the big storyline for me coming out of this game. I expect Kyler Murray having his binky back, his favorite target. DeAndre Hopkins is going to change this offense for the better. I know Hollywood Brown is out for a significant period of time, but they add Robbie Anderson. They get Hopkins back. This is all of a sudden a much more dynamic passing game than it's been. So I have high hopes. I have Arizona covering 1.5. Dennis, how do you see this game?
I like your take on Arizona. This is self-interested for full disclosure. I want to put you on the spot with respect to Hopkins. I've been holding on to him fantasy-wise, and I did not look, so this is completely blind. I'm curious if you and I were to play odds makers for a second. What would your over-under on receptions be for DeAndre and receiving yards for the game? I'm curious to see if you're close to what I came up with.
When it comes to, I'm going to start with targets. I feel like he's going to be targeted at least 10 times. I think that there's a natural inclination for Kyler Murray to find him in the same way that Russell Wilson in years past had Baldwin or Lockett. You see, and DK Metcalf for that matter, you see quarterbacks, especially, and I bring up Russell Wilson because Kyler Murray and Wilson have certain tendencies when they don't have the first option in the play, they often scramble and then look for their favorite target going deep or coming back to the ball. So I expect 10 targets for DeAndre Hopkins. And of those 10 targets, I think he gets at least 6 catches, 7, 8. And I think I may be conservative on that level. But I think that I would feel confident if the over-under was set at 5.5.
I'm not lying to you. I literally have 5.5 in my screen. If I could share it, I would. I'll tell you with respect to receiving yards, I put it at 65. And I would love to hit the over because I've held on to him this long. I want him to get as many receptions. It's a PPR league, and obviously I hope there's a touchdown in there as well.
Blease, I know that you play fantasy a lot. You've been looking at DeAndre Hopkins for the past few weeks, I'm sure, or thinking about the Cardinals maybe. Blease, do you have any take on this game?
Yeah, and didn't they trade for Robbie Anderson too? I mean,
They did. They traded, Robbie Anderson after getting kicked off the Panthers, which I guess is a good thing. They traded him for a couple of late round picks over the next couple of years.
so it's got to be good for Kyler Murray. If you're holding on to him as a QB, it probably improves their offense a little bit. It may take a few weeks for Hopkins to get going. Maybe I don't know. He's such a talent. It's hard to say where he's at, like physically, if he how game ready he is.
One note that I want to bring up for this game is we've now entered the part of the season where if you had Cliff Kingsbury being fired, that ticket's starting to feel pretty hot in your hand. Matt Rule has now been fired, so the seal has been broken on NFL teams getting rid of their head coach. Cliff Kingsbury needs to make a splash. I actually think that contributes to the betting line in this game. And it's one of the reasons in this show we're going to talk about ways to take advantage of early betting lines. This is an opportunity for it. The pressure is on in Arizona. Cliff Kingsbury needs a win. He needs a win at home, and it needs to be convincing. He doesn't have any more excuses. DeAndre Hopkins being back is a part of that. They need to click, and they need to click now. On the other side of the ball, because we haven't talked Saints at all, they're just riddled with injuries right now. Their defense is one of the worst in the league, allowing 26.3 points per game. That's fourth worst. You add on top of that, they are the worst turnover differential in the NFL at -7. I expect there to be turnovers in this game, whether it's Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston. I think this is a game that Arizona really needs to get. Again, giving my pick early, this is a way you can take advantage of an early line. Arizona at -1.5 feels like a really good bet to me. I think they win by 3 or more. I feel really confident about that. I may make it one of my better picks of the week. If we count that, I know Thursday games, it's kind of too early to give it away or include in that. But it's a great thing. You want to get those parlays in. If you feel good about that Thursday game, build your parlays around it. You want to take advantage of some of those bets. We're going to move on now to the 1 p.m. game, or the 1 p.m. window, that is. Cleveland Browns 2-4 at the Baltimore Ravens 3-3 on CBS. The Baltimore Ravens are 6.5-point favorites. The over-under set at 46.5 points. Just to give some gambling notes before we get into our analysis of the game, the Browns are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games overall. The Ravens are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games following an against the spread loss. The Browns are 0-5 against the spread in their last 5 meetings, and the under is 4-1 in the Ravens' last 5 games. Dennis, what's your take on this game?
I'm curious if Ronnie Stanley's playing or not. And it sounds silly, but I feel as though when he's there, Baltimore shines. When he's not, they seem to falter. So I don't know that I'd make a selection until I know what his status is. I do, in terms of fantasy implications, I also would be curious to know what's going on at running back. I think Baltimore's got some injuries that they're dealing with Dobbins, and I think Gus Edwards is now in the mix. So be curious to see if you can pick somebody up as a free agent at waivers tonight.
Analyzing the Browns and Ravens 6.5-point favorites, over under 46.5 points. I think this is a game that I like Baltimore on the money line. I think it may be a bit more competitive than the -6.5. My best bet on this is Baltimore money line, but I am considering buying 1.5 on Cleveland. I like them. If you're giving me a touchdown in a division game, I think we've now figured out by the sheer statistics and how kind of the league has played out this year that seems to be a good bet on the underdog. I'm also considering the under. 46.5 seems pretty high to me. Again, to give some gambling notes, I mentioned earlier, the under is 4-1 for the Ravens in their last 5 home games, and the under is 8-3 in the last 11 meetings in Baltimore between the Browns and Ravens. So I like the under in both the under and the spread. I'm going to buy a 1.5. You're going to hear me say that a lot. But Fumble Sports definitely endorses the 1.5 buy. But those are bets I like. That said, I definitely like Baltimore on the money line. I think that the Jacoby Brissett magic has run out. I think that the team is now in that waiting for Deshaun Watson to rejoin the team mode. And so I think this is a big game for Baltimore to win. They can't afford to lose it. So I like Baltimore in the money line, but a lot of running. So I certainly think it's an opportunity for the running games of these two teams. Dennis, from a fantasy standpoint, is there any player that you're expecting to be a breakout player in this game? Lamar Jackson included, though he seems to be an obvious one these days.
Well, I think Amari Cooper is the one who he seems to go away and then suddenly come back with a big game. And I think he's due. If I wanted to take a long shot on DraftKings on Sunday, that might be the guy. See where he's coming. I don't know what he's currently requiring for a salary, but that might be one to keep an eye on.
I totally agree. I actually was considering bringing him into the start, flex, or sit segments that we do throughout the week in the videos that we drop, because I think he could go over as well. The Ravens' pass defense has just been dreadful, and Amari Cooper, he is a star wide receiver. I'm disappointed that Brissett hasn't used him enough in the last couple weeks, but he should have a good game against the Baltimore Ravens. Blease, do you have any take on this game?
I don't. I just want to tell people to tweet out the space. Let's get some more people in here and to follow Butt Fumble if you're not following already on all social media platforms, because he's putting out a lot of content. Just want to say what's up to Hallmark down there. What's up, Hallmark? What's up, Metaware Drip? What's up, Andre? Appreciate everyone coming through the space and supporting. So appreciate your time.
Blease, Dennis, Hallmark, Meta Drip, Andre, I appreciate everyone in the space. Obviously, we are grateful for the support. Follow us on TikTok, follow us on Twitter, subscribe on YouTube. We love talking sports here on Butt Fumble Sports. We love breaking down NFL games. We're going to continue with the 1 p.m. slate. The Atlanta Falcons and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Falcons are 3-3. The Bengals are 3-3. This is a game in which the spread is 6 in favor of the Bengals. The over-under set at 45.5. I'll get to my analysis in 1 second, but of course, gambling trends first. Falcons 6-0 against the spread. They are the last team in the NFL that's undefeated against the spread. But the Bengals are 12-2 against the spread in their last 14 games overall. The under is 7-1 in the Falcons' last 8 games following a straight-up loss. The under is 10-1 in the Bengals' last 11 games overall. And the Bengals at home, the under is 4-0 as well. For this game, just looking at bets, I love this early line. This is one of the reasons I like to get into bets on Tuesday. The Atlanta Falcons by 7.5. That is a bet I definitely like. I want to buy a 1.5, get them by a touchdown or more. I feel like they're going to be competitive with the Bengals. We've seen all year the Falcons play to the level of their competition. They're competitive. I like them at plus 7.5. That said, the Cincinnati Bengals, I think they're turning a corner. I think that was a very big win for them in New Orleans. They were down. They could have easily lost that game, but Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, the offense found it in the second half. I thought it was a momentum-building win for the season. I like Cincinnati on the money line. I think they're going to build momentum. I don't think the Falcons are a good enough team overall to beat Cincinnati, especially on the road. But I like the Falcons to be competitive, especially if you're giving me a touchdown. So, again, Atlanta plus 7.5 on this game.
I think I just lost you there for a second, and so I'll jump in. Looking at both these teams being 3-3, it's funny because I look at Atlanta as if they're the 3-3 team that's just happy to be here, exceeding expectations, whereas the Bengals are probably pissed that they're at 3-3. And I think that last week's game for the Bengals in particular, I think it's showing some improvement. I think it was Blease's observation last week that the Bengals seem to rise or fall based on their offensive line play. And I think it's spot on. I agree with you here. I'd take the Bengals on the money line. I don't know how close it would be, but if I had to choose on one of those, I would certainly put my money with Cincinnati.
So you're seeing them at 3-3. I'm seeing Falcons at 6-0. Good teams win, great teams cover. Atlanta is a great team. And I think, you know, buying that point and a half, you get them at a touchdown. I think they go to 7-0 with that 7.5. So that's a good early line there. Um, but yeah, I like that perspective too. It's like they're happy to be at 3-3, where the Bengals, it's like that's disappointing that they're at 3-3. So it's pretty funny matchup.
We're going to keep moving on in the 1 p.m. slate. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the disappointment of week 6, 3-3 now on the season, play maybe the second most disappointing team of week 6 in the Carolina Panthers, who are 1-5. As I mentioned earlier, they traded Robbie Anderson after he was kicked off the team midweek, or rather mid-game, and now traded for a couple of late round picks over the next 2 years. Tampa Bay is a 10-point favorite. The over-under is set at 40.5 for this one. A couple of gambling trends for you. The Buccaneers are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 meetings in Carolina. The road team is 11-5 against the spread in their last 16 meetings. The Buccaneers are 4-0 against the spread in the last 4 meetings between these two teams. The under is 5-1 in the Bucs' last 6 road games, and the over is 4-1 in the last 5 meetings. Thinking about this game from a gambling standpoint, I think this is just a must-win for the Buccaneers. With Tom Brady obviously dealing with so much on and off the field over the last couple of days, I think that he's got to be the killer that we expect him to be and have known him to be for years. And this is a game in which I'm willing to put a lot of money on Tampa Bay on the money line. I'm willing to put a lot of money on Tom Brady coming through. I like him on over total touchdowns. I like him on over total passing yards. I expect this to be a game in which the old Tom Brady emerges. And maybe I need to rephrase that. Not the old 45-year-old Tom Brady, but Tom Brady of old. The Tom Brady who, after a bad week, bounces back, has a big game. That said, I do like the under in this game. It is definitely something I'm considering because I just don't see Carolina putting up enough points. How many points can Tampa Bay put up? If it's 40, you're still hitting the under. So to me, I think this is a game in which I love Tom Brady's points, his plays on prop bets. I like Tampa Bay on the money line. I like the under, and I'm even considering taking Tampa Bay at -5.5 or -8.5 after you buy 1.5. That's definitely a spread that I think could be worth it. We've seen a couple big spreads over the course of this year. Pittsburgh against the Bills worked out in favor of the favorite. I'm thinking this is a similar kind of game. So that's my analysis for it. Dennis, what's your take?
I love all those options. I like the under. I think the Bucs are capable of putting up somewhere 30 or more points, but I have no faith in the Panthers. And if there are serious intentions of shopping McCaffrey, I wonder if you'll see a reduced number of snaps just for injury preservation's sake. I don't know. I'm certainly rooting for him to be traded. I've got him in one of my floundering fantasy teams, so I'd love to see him go to the Chiefs or even the Rams for that matter. But in terms of selecting a pick, give me the under for that week.
Blease, any take on this one?
I don't, but I do have a question now of are there odds on what team he'll land at? Because you're saying Rams, and I'm just like, my mind is blowing right now. If he fucking goes to the Rams, like, I think that's a huge move
Right.
and would be a huge play for the Rams.
I would love to see the odds myself. I mean, if I could choose between any two teams, I think those would be the two most interesting ones for him to land on for sure.
I obviously would love to see him on the Rams. Now that Cam Akers is no longer a part of that team and they're looking to move on from him, I just like to see a swap out of running backs. I think Matt Stafford could certainly use another target. And what's great about Christian McCaffrey is he's not just a running back. I mean, he's like a Wes Welker if you put him in the slot. He's like a Kevin Falk if you put him in the backfield. Yes, there's some New England Patriots that I like, and I think Christian McCaffrey kind of fits that mold. He's versatile. He knows opposing defenses very well, so you can use him in man-to-man, because he has the raw talent, or you can use him against a zone because he'll be able to read it, sit in the open spots, and be able to take advantage of it. So I'd really like to see him with the Rams. But there are really a number of teams that he fits on. He's just one of those players where he's a Swiss Army knife that every quarterback would benefit from having. I mean, to me, there are only so many running backs who even qualify, Aaron Jones being one of them. Talk about a quarterback who's not using him enough in Aaron Rodgers. We're going to move to that game now because the Green Bay Packers, once again, disappointing last week at home against the Jets. That's right, Dennis. You have a winning football team in the Jets, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Not quite yet. We're still going to just talk Packers for now.
That's fine.
The Packers are 3-3. The Washington Commanders, who are dealing with their own headaches at quarterback, are 2-4. Carson Wentz, finger injury. He will be out for this game and for weeks to come. Taylor Heineke will be getting the start. Getting to some gambling trends before we break down the game. The Packers are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 road games. The Commanders are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games overall. Under is 4-0 in the Packers' last 4 games following a straight-up loss. The home team is 5-2-1 against the spread in the last 8 meetings between the two teams. And the over is 4-1 in the last 5 meetings in Washington. I mentioned Tom Brady a moment ago needing a get-right game. I think the same goes for Green Bay. I had the Jets covering last week. I'm high on the Jets, Dennis. We'll get to them again. I think they're very talented. But as for the Packers, they've had 2 disappointing weeks in a row. I think they need a bounce-back game more than almost anybody in the league, and I just expect them to get it. They're going against Washington team that has questions at quarterback, has questions on offense, isn't that talented. I think Ron Rivera, unfortunately, will probably not make it through to next season. I think this will probably be his last year as their head coach. But I like Green Bay on the money line. I think they break this losing streak. I'm also considering the over. Right now, the over-under is set at 41.5 points. If I buy that down to 40 points, I may like that. I think Green Bay puts up enough points on its side, gets above 20 points. And I actually think Taylor Heineke could have a decent day. He's one of those backups who every time he comes in, I feel like he over-delivers. He is more dynamic. He gets out of the pocket. He can throw on the run. He's got a decent arm. And I think actually the wide receivers make plays for him. There's just something, there's a believability there that Carson Wentz has been lacking. So that said, I really like Green Bay on the money line, and I'm considering the over. Dennis, what's your take on this game?
I agree with you about Heineke. He does bring an element of spice that's completely lacking with Carson Wentz. I would actually appreciate live betting this as a hedge. I would probably go with Green Bay, but paying attention to the game, watching it, maybe following what the odds are if you need to, if things seem to be going south. I think, if anything, the Packers, like in the Giants game 2 weeks ago, they seem to be in it in the first half, and then suddenly the bottom falls out in the second half. So that would be part of my motivation to just keep a close eye.
Please, any take on this game?
No, hard pass. What a disappointment this has been for Rodgers. I mean, that's all.
Moving away from one team in the NFC North to another, Detroit Lions coming off a bye week are 1-4. The Dallas Cowboys coming off a loss to the Eagles are now 4-2. But Dallas gets Dak Prescott back. He's going to be the starting quarterback this week. The Lions are 5-0 against the spread versus a team with a winning record. The Cowboys are 10-1 against the spread versus a team with a losing record. Road team is 5-1 against the spread in the last 6 meetings between the two teams. The under is 5-0 in the Cowboys' last 5 home games. Right now, I'm still not putting a pick down for this game. I'm leaning towards taking the Lions to cover after I buy 1.5. I think 8.5 is a lot of points given how the Lions have played this year. They've been competitive in a number of games. They were at the beginning of the season, maybe the first 3 weeks, a cover darling, and I certainly like them to continue that. Coming off a bye week, they're healthier. I expect DeAndre Swift to be back for them. So this is a game in which both teams have stars returning to the field. I think that actually favors Detroit more than it actually favors Dallas. I think Dallas's offense, I think we know what they are at this point. I don't think Dak improves them by so much. There may be a few more passing yards, a couple more big plays, but I think Dallas's strength is their defense. Detroit's strength is their offense. So I expect this to be a more competitive game than people think. That said, I'm not making a pick yet because I do want to make sure that DeAndre Swift plays in this game. I think that's really crucial to Detroit being able to cover, but I am leaning towards Detroit plus 8.5. Dennis, what's your take on this game?
After having watched with sorrow all of my Lions offensive players being shut down by the Patriots, I'm leaning towards the under in this game. I think the Dallas defense is much stronger than the Pats. Granted, the Pats coaching is probably way better than the Cowboys, but the personnel seem to be more talented. So if I was going to focus on one bet, that would be it.
From a fantasy standpoint, are there any players in this game, Dennis, that you have your eye on?
Swift, absolutely. I'm hoping he comes back healthy. From what I've heard, he's supposed to be good to go, or at least from what I've read. And for Amon-Ra, I want to see him have a big bounce back game. He was carrying me in one of mine, and after that egg that was laid in New England, I'm hurting. And for them to not play last week, could definitely use a big output this week.
I'm a big fan of Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'd love to see him have a big game. That said, he'll probably get paired up against Diggs. That's a tough assignment for him. If there are some player props I really like, over half a sack for Micah Parsons, I really like that. Jared Goff, over half an interception. I feel like the Dallas defense will apply pressure on him. He'll throw at least one pick in this game. I also do like a couple players on Dallas's side. I think that for fantasy, Noah Brown may be a player you want to pick up on the waiver wire. He had good chemistry with Dak in the early, part of the, in the preseason and obviously in week one. I think that there's chemistry there. And I just expect that the coverage will be focused on CeeDee Lamb. And I expect Gallup and Brown to maybe have better games. That said, the Detroit defense is just horrible. So I do expect Dak to have a nice first game back from injury. Moving to the next game in the 1 p.m. slate, we're going to the New York Giants, who are 5-1, shocking everybody, including myself. I did not see this team performing to this level. Brian Daboll has just been outstanding as a head coach. Meanwhile, Doug Peterson, another head coach in his first year, are 2-4 with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars are 3-point favorites. The over-under set at 42.5 points. I'll actually get to betting trends in a moment. Dennis, what's your take on this game to start?
I have to say, for both teams, they are exactly the opposite of what I thought they were going to be. And I need to calibrate and just reset. There's been enough of a sample size at this point. I'm convinced that the Giants are a force that needs to be reckoned with. I kept eyeballing whoever they were going up against and thinking that it was just, a isolated win here and there. By contrast with Jacksonville, I kept thinking that things were going to turn around. It's got to be this week. It's got to be this week. So I'm crumpling all that up. I'm going with the Giants. And maybe this is one of those George Costanza things where somebody needs to do the opposite of me, but give me the Giants this week.
Yeah, Jacksonville is a 3-point favorite. There's something about that just doesn't sit right with me. The Giants have played so well this year. Getting to some of the gambling trends, the Giants are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games overall. The Jaguars are 4-1 against the spread in their last 13 home games. Giants 0-4, though, against the spread in their last 4 meetings with the Jaguars. And the under is 7-1 in Jacksonville's last 8 home games. That one note, the Giants 0-4 against the spread in their last 4 meetings against the Jaguars, that has crawled into the back of my head. And I feel like that's a reason why Vegas has made this a closer line than I expected. I thought the Giants would not only be not 3-point underdogs, I could see them being favored. Normally we talk about the home team getting 3 points. That's the advantage that's built in to being at home. but there's something about that line that has me curious because Jacksonville has struggled the last few weeks despite Trevor Lawrence having a decent day against the Colts. He lost. The momentum from early part of the season, that's kind of deteriorated for Jacksonville. Meanwhile, the Giants are just emerging. Danny Dimes has led more fourth quarter comebacks than any quarterback in the league this year. There's some magic happening in the Meadowlands. So even though the Giants are traveling south to Jacksonville, I think they bring some of that momentum with them. I'm not making that the primary bet of this game, though. For me, the play of this game is the under. I buy a point and a half on the 42-point line, and I'm taking the over. I'm taking the under. I'm buying that up to 44 points, and I'm taking the under. So for this game, Giants at Jacksonville, I like under 44 points after you buy a point and a half. I am considering the Giants plus 4.5 after you buy a point and a half. I think the Giants easily cover that 4.5. I think Saquon Barkley, I hope he's healthy. I think that's the big question mark. That's the only thing I could see really shifting this line throughout the week. But the Giants have proved they're a competitive team. And even though there are some trends that go against my thinking, I'm going to stick with the Giants covering for this game. Dennis, are there any fantasy plays you think about for this game?
Well, Saquon, I think, was fighting some kind of a shoulder issue there. So if he's been carrying your team, I think you might want to keep an eye on the injury report. I'm sure he'll play, but if you have any options, alternatively, I think by contrast, stay away from Robinson, stay away from Etienne. I don't know if people have been sticking with them, good for them, but I certainly would stay away.
If you have questions throughout the week, if you want to know how we're thinking about fantasy, if you want to talk about gambling lines or get some advice on daily fantasy, reach out to Fumble Sports on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. We're easily accessible. We love talking sports, so feel free to message us. We're going to close out the 1 p.m. slate with the Indianapolis Colts 3-2-1 at the Tennessee Titans, who are 3-2. This game right now sees the Titans favored by 3 points. The over-under set at 42.5 points. Some gambling trends for you. The road team is 7-1 against the spread in the last 8 meetings between these two teams. The Colts are 7-3 against the spread in their last 10 meetings in Tennessee. The Titans are 5-1 against the spread in their last 7 games following a bye week. And the under is 6-0 in the Colts' last 6 road games. Before I give my analysis, Dennis, what do you think of Colts at Titans?
I cannot win on the Colts, whether I'm picking with them, against them. They just do exactly the opposite of what I think. So I won't make any prognostication other than to say I have no idea how this may turn out. I feel like the Colts are the most fraudulent 3-2-1 team. I can't believe that they actually have a winning record. I guess if I had to pick a team here, I would be leaning towards Tennessee. I think they're better coached, and I think that they are in more dire of a need for a win.
For this game, I think the bye week plays a factor. I like the fact that the Titans get healthy. There's Derrick Henry getting a break, getting a rest. I also think they needed the extra week of practice. I think this is a team that hasn't clicked on offense like everyone expected. I do like Tennessee in this game on the money line. That said, it's not a game I'm crazy about early in the week. I'll probably wait to see where the line moves as public money comes down. I probably expect the money to come down on Tennessee. That said, Matt Ryan has actually performed better than a lot of people expected. His stats this year are surprising. He's among the top 10 in passing yards. But I do like Tennessee coming off a bye week. I gave the gambling trend a moment ago. The Titans are 5-1 against the spread in their last 7 games following a bye week. Mike Vrabel, a descendant of Bill Belichick, understands the importance of a bye week, understanding how to prepare for your next opponent. So I think Tennessee is the better play in this week. Dennis, are there any players in fantasy that you have your eye on in this matchup?
If there's any way that you can get Brees, do what you can, especially if you're in a dynasty league. If I was to have another child, I might name them Brees. So whatever pull, if you need to unload, maybe Pitts can be coupled with somebody. You can unload him and bring in Brees, but I think the secret's out. He looks to be a potential rookie of the year prospect offensively.
You're talking Breece Hall. We're talking Colts and Titans.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm already in dreamland. I'm so excited for the Jets. I'm looking ahead.
Well, with that said, we can finally move to Dennis's favorite team, the Jets. 4-2. I knew that was really your way of just getting into Jets talk. That's fine. Jets are 4-2, going to Denver, playing the 2-3 Broncos. Russell Wilson injured. I've heard different reports. I've heard everything from it's a significant injury to it's day-to-day. So I don't know what this line is. I go to Bovada for gambling. I know there are other sites, FanDuel, DraftKings. I don't know what they're putting out, but I'm not seeing any line for this game. Dennis, unfortunately, it means we can't talk it the same way we want to, but I'll give you the opportunity. What gets you excited about the Jets right now?
Okay, so let me just say I probably got about 10 different texts as the game ended over the past weekend with congratulations, which I actually appreciate. I don't find it to be patronizing. I think like a lot of the sports world, they very much are happy for the long-suffering Jets fan base. If the season ended today, the Jets would be the sixth seed in the AFC. The Chargers only one spot ahead of them, which if you would have told me that at the beginning of the year, I think my head might have exploded. So I do feel as though the Jets have a season of living in the upside down, and I don't care. I love it. As far as this weekend goes, though, watching the Broncos last night, did it not feel like the Broncos defense had just some kind of an extra gear, some kind of an extra force? I was scared for Herbert and Eckler every time they were taking a hit because I thought it might be game ending or season ending. So I am wondering if the shoe might drop just by virtue of the Broncos defense. I think that I read somewhere they may have only given up one passing touchdown so far this year. I don't know if that's correct or not, but it certainly doesn't seem like the Jets have a aerial attack going towards their receivers, which makes me nervous. I mean, they're certainly doing well on play action and getting a lot of passes to the running backs, but I'm afraid that the Broncos are going to exploit that and just stack the line and force Wilson to throw.
One player I have my eye on from a fantasy standpoint in this matchup between the Jets and the Broncos is Latavius Murray. I think he may get more touches in this game. I liked a little bit of what I saw from last night on Monday Night Football. So I'm obviously not impressed with what I've seen from Russell Wilson, but I think that only makes the running game of the Broncos more important. So I may like him. If you're in one of those weeks where you're in a bye week hell or your running backs are injured and you need to pick up someone off the waiver wire and just plug them in for 1 week, here we are in the midway part of the fantasy football season. Latavius Murray may be someone you can pick up, especially if you're in a 12, 14-team league where it's hard to find a running back who's going to get touches. He may be someone you want to go with. That said, now that Dennis has had his moment to talk about Gang Green, we don't need to give too much love to the New York Football Jets, and we'll go into some gambling trends. The Jets are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 road games. The Broncos are 3-7 against the spread in their last 10 games overall. The Jets are 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 meetings with the Broncos, and the under is 5-1 in the Broncos' last 6 home games. I'm really interested by that one nugget. The Jets are 1-5 against the spread in their last 6 meetings at Denver. Despite the talent that the Jets have, I'm curious to know if this team can travel to Mile High. It's a different environment for a number of reasons. I'm curious to know. I like Breece Hall, obviously. I think he's going to continue to perform well. I like him in fantasy as an RB2. I think you can lock him in there. But Zach Wilson, I feel like he's good for an interception in this game. So one, I know we don't have the spread because Vegas is holding it back. But one player prop I love for this game, Zach Wilson, over half an interception. I feel like Patrick Surtain, Justin Simmons, someone in the secondary is going to get to Zach Wilson. They'll be able to apply some pressure, Bradley Chubb or the like. So I do like an interception. But when it comes to the Broncos, I just have no faith in their offense right now. So I'm curious to see if the Jets are actually favored in this game or if the Broncos are by a slim margin. I've got to wait, obviously. I wish I had picked up this line earlier in the week or right after last night's game and jumped in on it because there's an opportunity to take the Jets here. But that said, wait on this game. The under may be the better play. of all of it. I think this is a game in which the two defenses show out against inexperienced quarterbacks. But that said, we can't go into this game too much because Vegas hasn't released the spread. Moving on to another 4 p.m. game, the Houston Texans, 1-3-1, travel to Vegas to play the 1-4 Raiders. Vegas, 7-point favorite. The over-under set at 44 points. Just to give some gambling trends before we break it down, Texans are 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 games against the AFC. The road team is 5-2 against the spread in the last 7 meetings between the Texans and Raiders. The Texans are 4-1-1 against the spread in their last 6 road games, and the over is 4-1-1 in the last 6 meetings in Vegas. Dennis, I'll let you take it away first. What do you think about Texans at Raiders?
Well, I could go on about the Jets all night, but I will stay on the point here. When I look at the Raiders and I see that they've only got 1 win, and then you look at Houston and they only have 1 win, I still have a hard time believing that that's where the Raiders really are, that they're in the Houston, Texas neighborhood. They just seem to me to have too much talent to have a record like that. So I think the talent should come through here. I mean, it's at home. They're in a desperate situation. If I had to go with the two, I think the Raiders would certainly be where I'd be leaning. I don't know, and if either you or Blease knows, what's the story with Darren Waller? Is he all clear? Is he doubtful, questionable? What's his status?
I haven't heard anything yet about his status. That's one of those injuries I am looking to keep an eye on throughout the week. In considering bets for this game, though, one play I really like, early betting line. I love the over in this game. Over under set at 44 points. I want to buy that down by 1.5 in Butt Fumble Sports style, as I have a tendency to do. But that said, I love the over in this game. Texans coming off a bye week. I think they're going to be attacking. I think Dameon Pierce has really shown out this year. I think Mills has had his moments. I'm not going to say he's a good quarterback. I think he's an average quarterback, but he has the potential to hit the deep ball and to stay competitive in games. The Raiders defense hasn't been nearly as good as I thought they would be. Meanwhile, I do like the Raiders coming off a bye week on their own. I think they're going to have a bounce back game. I certainly like Vegas on the money line here. I think I like Houston to cover 8.5 after you buy 1.5. But the play on this game that I like the most is the over. Dennis, are there any players in this game that you got your eye on for fantasy?
Josh Jacobs. Is so underrated. I don't know what his actual ranking is. I think he's a top 10 running back compared to his average selection in drafts, or probably somewhere closer to 20. I think that he keeps it going, especially with an extra week of rest. I like him, especially in DFS.
What are your thoughts on Derek Carr? Can we trust Derek Carr on a week-to-week basis for fantasy?
I certainly I've had that option to pick him up when I've been streaming after Prescott got injured, and I just can't bring myself to do it. Statistically, he seems to have more down games than he does up games. So for me personally, just not interested.
One player prop that I am going to bet, I like an anytime touchdown for Devontae Adams. I feel like that's a safe play, given that he hasn't quite delivered like so many fantasy owners and Raider fans have expected. I still think he does have a touchdown in this game, as the Texans just simply don't have a cornerback to answer him. Blease, any takes on this game?
No, sir, none.
And by the way, I just love calling it onto Blease for that kind of analysis. That's the only kind of analysis you can get here at Buff Fumble Sports, breaking down gambling trends and having some fun at it, having a couple laughs at Blease's expense right there. But moving on to another 4 p.m. slated game, the Kansas City Chiefs travel to San Francisco to play the 49ers. I need to make sure I saw this game correctly, because in my notes, I have it correctly. The Chiefs are a 3-point favorite despite being on the road in San Francisco. The over-under set at 47 points. Giving some gambling trends before we break it down, the Chiefs are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games overall. The 49ers are 6-0 against the spread in their last 6 home games. Home team is 5-0 against the spread in their last 5 meetings. over is 6-1 in the Chiefs' last 7 road games, and the under is 4-0 in the 49ers' last 4 home games. Dennis, what's your take on this game?
I'm looking forward to sitting on the couch as it's starting to get dark outside and seeing the action here, following all the catching up on the stats from the 1 o'clock games. This is the one game of the week as a fan I'm most looking forward to watching. And I really hope that all the offensive weapons on both sides are delivering and putting up some points. So chances are, if you are in a one of those team captain showdowns, as long as one of the players has a hyphenated last name, I think you're going to be all set.
I love this game. I'm so excited about it. I definitely think it's my favorite game of the week. From a gambling standpoint, I really like this game as well. I think this 3-point line is giving too much love to the Chiefs and is really hating on a 49ers team that defensively is impressive. I know they lost last week to the Atlanta Falcons, but I thought that was a game that was going to be a wacky one, a West Coast team traveling to the East Coast in an early window. So often that's kind of a sluggish start for the road team. It was last week. Atlanta jumped out early, and the 49ers could never quite come back. I don't think that's the case, obviously, in this game. I think the 49ers being at home, I think we saw some cracks in the Chiefs offense last week. I think the Bills didn't expose them. I still think Patrick Mahomes is incredibly dynamic. He's fantastic. He's the best quarterback right now in the NFL. That said, we saw what a great defense can do against this Chiefs offense. The 49ers have a great defense. Each part of their team from the D-line, Nick Bosa is an absolute stud. I really like Fred Warner in the linebacking position. There's a lot of things I like about the scheming of this team too. I think the 49ers play really well in man-to-man. So that said, I like the 49ers covering. I'm going to buy the 1.5. I'm going to get the 49ers plus 4.5. As for the over-under, I'm leaning towards the over only because I do think Deebo Samuel has a big game. I do think Brandon Ayuk has a decent game. I could see it potentially hitting the over 47. If obviously I buy that down, but I'm staying away from that right now because I'm curious to see how public money drives that over under. If it goes low, I'm probably just going to fade the public. I'm going to go against the public, and so wherever that line goes, I'm taking the other side. But my favorite bet for this game is the 49ers 4.5. Dennis, are there any players in this game that you like from a fantasy standpoint?
This isn't going to be the popular pick, but I like Jeff Wilson. I think that there's going to be a lot of just little short dump-off passes when Jimmy's under pressure, and he's proved to be pretty effective. They may not be for long runs like the Deebo type potential, but I think he might be a sneaky DFS that you could pick up on the cheap side if you need to plug somebody in on the flex.
I would avoid Clyde Edwards-Helaire. The 49ers are the number one defense against the rush. And the Chiefs don't hand the ball off enough to Clyde Edwards-Helaire anyways. So I definitely would sit him in fantasy. If you don't have that option, flex him, do something, just try to lessen the impact he has on your fantasy team because I just don't see him having a big game. The last game in the 4 p.m. slate, the Seattle Seahawks 3-3 travel to the LA Chargers, who got their big win last night at home. The Chargers are a 7-point favorite. The over-under set at 52.5. Gambling trends for you. Chargers are 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games overall. The underdog is 6-0 against the spread in the last 6 meetings between the two teams. The Seahawks are 4-14 against the spread in their last 18 games following a straight-up win. The under is 11-5 in the Seahawks' last 16 road games, and the over is 5-1 in the Chargers' last 6 games following an against the spread win. This is a game in which I feel like the disrespect, we've noted it a couple times with the Giants, with the Jets. The Seattle Seahawks is another example of it, where there's just some disrespect being put on these teams when it comes to the spread. 7 points seems like a lot of points to give towards the Chargers. They don't have a healthy kicker right now. They're going to have to sign one. Are we ever going to see Keenan Allen again on the field? Justin Herbert, as talented as he is, he missed some throws and some plays last night that should have been bigger. Meanwhile, Geno Smith is maybe the comeback player of the year from a statistical standpoint. I know Brian Robinson is by far the comeback player of the year, even though he's a rookie. But that said, Geno Smith putting up monster numbers. He's one of the best quarterbacks statistically in the NFL right now. Who saw that coming? I certainly didn't. And for that reason alone, I like Seattle covering. I'm going to buy the 1.5. I'm going to get Seattle at 8.5 points. And that seems like a spread they should be able to cover. Again, I think this is more about these two teams like to go for it on fourth down, so I could see a lot of offense. But in even that case, it would take a late score by the Chargers to push it over a touchdown. I just don't see that being the case. I think Seattle is competitive in this game. I like Seattle to cover. The over-under 52.5 seems pretty high. I probably like the under right now, given the fact that we don't know Keenan Allen's status, if he's not being able to play, if the offense of the Chargers isn't healthy. I like the under. Dennis, are there any picks for this game when it comes to fantasy or gambling?
So they're actually kind of related. I do feel that the under would be the way to go here. I would love to see some points scored. I've got players from both teams. But with respect to an actual player, I think Mike Williams bounces back. I think we'll see him. That show last night was uncharacteristic. I think Surtain was probably responsible for shutting him down, but I think he'll have a lot more luck against Seattle.
Moving on to the Sunday night football game, the Pittsburgh Steelers 2-4 travel to Miami to play the 3-3 Dolphins. They are going to be celebrating the 1972 undefeated Dolphins on Sunday night, and Tua Tagovailoa will make his return, reportedly make his return as the starting quarterback for Miami. Giving some gambling trends for this one, the Steelers are 1-3-1 against the spread in their last 5 games overall. The Steelers are 1-4 against their spread in their last 5 meetings against the Miami Dolphins. The underdog is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings between the two teams, and the under is 9-4 in the Dolphins' last 13 games against the AFC. Right now, Miami is a 7-point favorite. The over-under set at 44 points. I like Miami on the money line. I don't know the status of Kenny Pickett. I expect Mitch Trubisky will probably play, given that Pittsburgh will want to be careful with him. But I think Miami on the money line, just given that they have a healthy quarterback, and Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, they should have big games now that Tua is back. I feel like Miami wins this game, but that 7-point spread seems awfully high. 44 points seems kind of high to me as well, but I'm going to wait for public money to drive those two numbers before I put money down. Normally, I love getting in on a Sunday night game early in the week because there's usually one team that's overly favored. I think that's Miami in this case, but I don't have the same conviction that I do given where the quarterbacks are for this matchup. So I like Miami on the money line, but I'm not touching the spread. Dennis, what's your take on it?
I'm a little sad that we have to see Trubisky again, to be honest, for a national game on a Sunday night. This is where you want to see the stars come out. I'm also a little apprehensive about seeing Tua. God forbid we see him get concussed again, right? I mean, that's going to give me a little bit of anxiety, I think, every time that the Steelers get close to him. In terms of the teams, I agree. It sounds like the line for it's at 7 seems a bit high for Miami. I think I would prefer to wait and see as well and get confirmation exactly who's in, who's out before I make any decision.
I am also kind of interested, just from a fun standpoint, I guess this is fun, but over under half a flag on a Tua Tagovailoa roughing the passer. Will there be any flag called if the Steelers as much as breathe on him? I feel like the NFL is just nervous about this. Tua Tagovailoa is a well-publicized player. The success he had at Alabama, he has obviously been in the spotlight this entire season. And if he gets hurt again, I think it's a terrible look for the NFL. I really think they're nervous about this one. There's lawsuits. There's the NFLPA. Everyone's kind of watching this game. So I'm really curious to see if the refs kind of own this game and create a protective bubble around him from a flag standpoint. It's part of the reason I also like Miami to cover. I just think the refs are going to be favoring Miami. You know, if you got to have a coin flip in most referee games, I think this is more 55% in favor of Miami. That seems pretty significant. To the last game of the week. Oh, I'm going to jump in. I'll get Rhino. Let's see if I can add him as a speaker real quick. Rhino, we got you? Rhino, you got anything for us?
Sorry, my button wasn't working there. Yeah, I agree. I would take the over on that flag. The refs are going to be coddling Tua to a degree because of the circumstances around the past 2 concussions, as you stated. That being said, you know, if Tua was supposed to have this entire report around him where they were going to investigate what happened, that was supposed to come out after 2 weeks. What are we at now? Week 3? I feel like it's being pushed out.
Rhino, this is also an NFL that told you that we were going to have Deflategate wrapped up or Spygate wrapped up in only a matter of weeks or months. And I still don't know what the hell happened in either one of those situations. I don't know what happened with the Brian Flores. I mean, the NFL hopes that everyone just forgets things. That's part of what they do. They just drag things out. I feel like the Washington Commanders have been in the news like 10 times over the last 7 years. And only now we're talking about them finally getting rid of their owner. So for so many reasons, I think that we're never really going to find out what happened with Tua. I think it's something that's going to be settled behind closed doors. But to that point, I do agree with you that I definitely like the Miami Dolphins in this game. And I think I do. I'm battling between the over-under. I'm really waiting for the public money to come down. Finally, we're going to get to the Monday Night Football game between the Chicago Bears and the New England Patriots. The Bears are 2-4.
Finally.
I know everyone's been waiting for this battle of the two great franchises from the Midwest and the Northeast. But this is a game that features 2 quarterbacks from the draft 2 years ago, with the Chicago Bears featuring Justin Fields. The New England Patriots, I do expect Mac Jones to be back. I know there's a quote-unquote QB controversy happening in New England, but I expect Mac Jones to push to be in this game. And if he doesn't get this start, it may be a while until he does, because Bailey Zappi has been playing well, and I expect the Patriots to play well in this game. So if Zappi has 3 weeks in a row, Mac Jones could be feeling the heat. Giving some gambling notes before I break this down from a betting standpoint. The Bears are 2-5 against the spread in their last 7 road games. The Patriots are 3-1-1 against the spread in their last 5 games overall. The under is 6-2 in the Bears' last 8 Monday night games, and the under is 6-1 in the Patriots' last 7 Monday night games. So 39.5 points is where the over-under is set. Based off the gambling trends, you would think the under would hit once again, but I don't quite know. I feel like there could be a defensive score in this game. I could see Justin Fields throwing a pick 6. So for those who like a long odds prop, I think a defensive touchdown may be a fun one to put a couple dollars on. That said, 7.5 points in favor of the Patriots seems high, and yet I'm reminded that the Bears simply just can't score enough. And so for this game, I like the Patriots on the money line. I like Justin Fields over half an interception. I feel like that's a good player prop to get. But at the same time, I think that 7.5 might be a bit of a trap. I actually kind of like the Patriots covering, especially if I buy a 1.5. I can see the Patriots winning by a touchdown in this game. But that said, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to touch it. If I put this game into any parlays, it's going to be New England on the money line. Dennis, what's your take on this one?
I like the Pats even with the 7.5. I think that they're showing that there's some stability now with the coaching staff. I think that the system is being executed as planned out. Fantasy-wise, give me the Pats defense. I'm sure they'll be a popular pick this week, but for good reason. Watching the Bears play offense is just the worst possible option other than maybe Denver to see in a national game. So give me the Patriots with the 7.5. Give me the Patriots defense and definitely the money line on the Pats.
One of my favorite pickups this week off the waiver wire is the Patriots defense. They performed well last week against the Browns. They performed well the week before against the Lions. If you're in one of those bye week hells, you need a defense off the waiver wire. the New England Patriots. They could be available in your league. Scoop them up. They could be a good spot start. If you have a bad matchup with your current defense, that's one place you can go. I want to thank you all so much for joining us. A fast hour that we just went through, covering all the games, previewing NFL Week 7. I can't believe we're already to Week 7. For those who have fantasy questions, gambling questions, or just want to talk sports, hit us up at Fumble Sports on TikTok and Instagram, at Sports Fumble on Twitter. We love engaging, we love answering questions, and we love winning you guys money. So continue to reach out. Appreciate it. Follow us on all of our platforms. And good luck this week in all your bets and in fantasy. Dennis, Blease, thanks for joining us. Tommy, Metadrip, Andre, Patriots Media. You know we love the Patriots. Giving some love out there. Appreciate all of you for being on, and have a great NFL Week 7.